This is the Northwest Tank Line Super Bowl show coming to you from Radio Row, New Orleans Convention Center. Super Bowl 59 takes place this Sunday at the Caesars Superdome. It's the Kansas City Chiefs going up for the three-peat against the Philadelphia Eagles. Well, a man who knows a thing or two about winning Super Bowls is one Brandon Bolden, because he won a couple as a running back with the New England Patriots. He's here talking about, well, cancer awareness, because he's gone through it. Brandon, thanks for making time out, man.
Oh, no, thanks for having me.
Like, football is always a small world. Like, I always say it's like 1 degree of separation.
Oh, 100%.
I'm looking like we're from Canada, right? Do the play-by-play for the Canadian BC Lions in the CFL. He played with Jeremiah Mazzoli at Ole Miss.
That's my guy.
He's a warrior. He's probably one of the most loved guys in the league.
Really?
Yeah, he had an injury a couple of years ago. It was really bad. I don't know if you followed it on Instagram or whatever, but the whole league was just – and when he came back after almost like a year and a half absence, like everybody was like – it was just such a feel-good story.
He's such a great person, and you don't want to see anything bad happen to anybody. But if you come across Jeremiah Mazzoli, you want to see him just do well in everything he does. He's an amazing person. Amazing teammate, but like a phenomenal person. I can't talk about it enough about it.
The other guy that you probably have a little experience from Ole Miss, he was a stud for many years. Just retired recently, Ted Laurent.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Teddy.
He was a beast.
Oh,
dude.
man. Ted. I think Ted still has like the squat record at Ole Miss.
Really?
It's like almost 900 pounds. Like he's a brick house, boy. I love Ted. That's my guy.
Small world, like we always say, like it's always like 1 degree of separation in this world of football, man. Even if you're from Canada and you're a Super Bowl champ like the New England with the New England Patriots. Okay, we're going to talk football, but more importantly, we're going to talk something that's more important than football, and that's cancer awareness, because you've gone through it. Tell us your story and how you're hoping to help others.
In 2018, after we lost to the Eagles in the Super Bowl, I was diagnosed with cancer. It was mucoepidermoid carcinoma. It's like a form of skin cancer, I believe. Had surgery. I had lost all function on the right side of my face, which, as a football player, you're like, I got a helmet on. It's not going to be that bad. But the biggest thing was because of kind of where the line is for where the cancer was, it connected to my shoulder. And, of course, when you're coming out of surgery, trying to ask the doctor all these questions, and it's a lot of, well, we don't know, and we don't know. And so in my head, I was like, well, it might be over with for football. And, like I said, this was in 2018. That year, I ended up playing with the Miami Dolphins. And that was kind of hard because, like I said, I didn't feel up to it. I didn't think my body would be up to it. But my wife and kids, my family, my teammates that I got, and the teammates in New England, they called, checked on me every day. Kids will never let you have a sick day. You're never sick from being a parent. And my wife pushed me harder than anything I've ever done and just stayed on me to keep on top of it. And here we are years later and still cancer-free and stuff like that.
As athletes, as football players, hockey players, baseball, whatever, the big thing you always get out of sports is the ability to overcome adversity, right? And that's like, you just kind of learn that life skill. This is life and death, right? This isn't a game where you got to come back where you're down by 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. But yet, did that still help you in terms of the battle?
Oh, yes, indeed. Like I said, like mentally, because it is a mind game. You hear you got cancer, and this is before I knew all the new research and stuff that's done. It's like when they said, oh, yeah, you had cancer, in my mind, I was like, all right, let me start picking out a casket. I want to pick where I'm getting buried.
I'm sorry for laughing.
No, it's a true story. And it's like I wasn't panicking, but it was like, God, now I got to explain this, and I got to go talk to my kids. And then I get hooked up with the American Cancer Society, and they start giving me a little informational stuff. And as I'm reading it, I'm like, okay, this isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And then it was the option for, like, you could do surgery, or you could do radiation or chemo. You could do radiation and chemo, or you could do all three. And I just opted just for the surgery. And like I said, it turned out best for my favor, and here we are.
Not to say that you're lucky. You did get cancer, but I'm going to say you're lucky in a way, and I'm going to say this. And I've had discussions with ex-athletes who have gone on health awareness promotional tours. And the thing is, when you're an athlete, number one, it'll go away in a day or two, right? I'm going to play through it, right? And that's one thing. So when you're like 45 years old, you still have that mentality. It's the wrong mentality to have. Like, you know, you got a pain in your side. I'll be good. I'll be all right. I'll play through it. No, man, way. It could be something serious. And the other thing, too, I think that gets kind of lost in the mix as an athlete, and I was lucky enough to play at the college level, but, you know, guys that play college and pro, you've always got a first-rate team of physicians around and all that. And, you know, hey, can I get this checked out? Boom. But when you're on your own, you're 35, 40 years old.
It's hard.
It's like, I don't want to go to the doctor.
Exactly.
Right? So that's what I think a lot of men and really have to be aware of, especially as you get older.
Yes.
Right? Is the fact that, you know, number one, don't think that you're just going to work your way through it or play through it or whatever. And then the other thing, too, is get to a doctor.
Yes.
Right? Don't be stubborn.
And that's the big part. That's why we're partnered up. I'm an ambassador, and it's to get early screening. Like, I was one of those guys. I didn't want to go to the doctor, even though I was around doctors almost all day, every day. I didn't want to go in there and have to go tell Bill Belichick, hey, I'm going to have to miss days, like asking Bill for sick days in the middle of a season. I didn't want to be that guy, and that kind of scared me in a way. So I didn't talk about it for years. And then finally, it was one of those days. It was just like, you know what? I'm going to go get it checked. The season's over with. What's the worst that can happen? And like I said, came back positive. I got cancer. Like I think I got that call. I think I got the call in March. I was on the surgery table in April, and I was back at spring practice. So I was back in summer practice in June.
Amazing. Brandon Bolden is our guest. Former running back with the New England Patriots, two-time Super Bowl champion with the Patriots, also played with the Dolphins and the Raiders as well. You played for 2 Super Bowl championship teams. What made Belichick so great?
His attention to detail.
Yeah.
Which it seems like a small thing, but it's such a big thing. We would go into every week kind of preparing, watching teams, and he would call out their tendencies. So, for example, when this was back in the day when Ravens had everybody. They had Ed Reed, Ray Lewis, and Suggs on their team. Mm-hmm. We knew if Suggs and Ray Lewis just so happened to switch positions where they were standing on the field, a blitz was coming from the other way. And we would have that information like on a Monday.
Wow.
So we go through the entire week with small details like that.
So you're not worried about getting that on Thursday. You've got it on Monday.
We got it on Monday. And so, boom, we come into like the walkthrough bill. Like he'll throw like little feelers out there, see if you was paying attention in meetings. And then you get into the game on Sunday. And it's like they're doing it. It's like, oh, well, I could just turn over here because here comes the blitz. And sure enough, here comes the blitz. And so it was just his attention to detail, and that's how he taught us to look at things. And that's how we kind of went about everything. And it just made the game that much easier.
I had a theory on the Patriots, right? Because when you look at the greatness and everybody, Tom Brady. Okay, fine. You got Belichick. But I think what the Patriots did, and I've heard this before, that they had the highest percentage of college grads on their roster. So obviously you're picking guys that are smart. But I think what they did is they picked, particularly on defense, athletes that were versatile, that were smart, that understood concepts.
Yes.
And you could,
put you anywhere.
Thank you.
Yep,
right?
That's how we
this time you're going to line up as a linebacker, but you know what? You're actually going to be a safety in this alignment. But guess what? The offense doesn't know you're going to be a safety. I remember talking, I think it was Peyton Manning said, he goes, when we went up against the Patriots, he goes, you didn't look at numbers, you just looked at where they lined up.
Yep.
Right? Because everybody was kind of interchangeable. And I think that's one of the reasons why the Patriots had that success, because if you look at that roster, with all due respect, I thought it was like littered with 10, 15 Hall of Famers, right? You've got a few. You had Moss at the end of your career. I mean, a few players, Brady, of course. But that was the thing I think that made the Patriots great, was just having smart football players.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I imagine the same held true on offense, too.
Oh, 100%. And it was the same thing. You could put Julian Edelman and Rob Gronkowski. This was our telltale sign of where we were kind of going with the ball. But the thing is, we would call the same play and make them switch. So now Julian is running Rob's route. Yeah. Rob's running Julian's route. Now you're confused,
I'm just confused listening
it's
to
a
you,
linebacker
dude.
covering a receiver now, and you have a cornerback covering a 6'8" tight end.
Yeah.
Who's like, both can win their matchup. It just depends on who Tom sees first. So we had that, and that's how we all were. And like even with the running backs, we carried the ball, we caught the ball, and we pass protect. And then majority of the time, we were all on special teams together. And so it was guys who can play wherever needed to be played, who was smart enough to know adjustments and how to do it.
You know, it's so funny you talk about blocking and receiving because, you know, everyone thinks about running backs and running the ball. Well, guess what? Especially in the Canadian game, we always talk about this. You're going to get maybe 15 touches. What are you doing the other 40 snaps?
Exactly.
The other 50 snaps when you got to maybe run a route, you know, be a decoy or whatever, at least pull a defender out of a zone, you name it. Or what are you doing on specials, right? What are you doing blocking?
Yeah.
Because everybody always forgets about that part of the game.
Yeah.
That is such a huge game. Blitz pickup, knowing what you're supposed to do with your assignments. So, yeah, and, man, I'll tell you, Chad Brown told us a story. I mentioned this the other day. He was a linebacker in the 90s, played many years for Pittsburgh, really good backer. Played for Pittsburgh, Seattle, and New England. He said he learned more under Bill Belichick, like under 2 years that he played from the entire time. I said, give me an example. He goes, I'll tell you when. He goes, I never saw this until I got to New England. He says, there'd be a critical play, say late in the half, and it'd be 3rd and 10. The other team's got the ball, minute left or whatever, and they're going to about to run their play, and Bill calls a timeout.
Mm-hmm.
And they called it a snapshot timeout, I think.
Yep.
And he said what it was.
Take a picture of what they
Take a picture of what you can do. So now either you run the same thing with the same alignment, and we know what's coming out of that alignment usually, or now I'm going to force you to run your second best play.
Yep.
Right? And he said that's just a little thing that he saw with
and that's
Belichick.
it's details.
Yeah.
It's details. Like that, as small and as minute as that might be to a regular person, that's all we need to know, especially on offense and defense. Like, if you come out there and you're going to line up like this, and like he said, it's going to call a timeout. Yeah. They're going to call upstairs, get it like, oh, this is the possible plays that can run. Now we're going to get in the best defense or best offense for this. And like he's been doing that for years.
Yeah. Before we let you go, we're talking about Bolden's. There was a Bolden played on your team whose dad played on the team, I think. There's a bunch of Boldens that played in the end.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. I don't believe. I tried to Google this, but you're not related to Jerron Bolden.
No.
Right?
No.
Jerron Bolden played in Canada. Probably gave me the best ever moment on the sidelines I've ever seen. I worked probably, I think about, 4 or 5 Grey Cups doing the Canadian Championship, CFL Championship doing the sideline. So one year, Winnipeg goes into the championship game. They were like 15-1, and Calgary was 8-10. Like they went through the playoffs. You know, well, I should say 15-1, 15-3 or whatever. Was in Calgary. They one of the few teams that ever finished below 500 and actually wound up winning a championship.
Wow.
So they play, Winnipeg's heavily favored in this game. They play them in the first half, and Calgary goes up by 2-3 touchdowns in the second quarter. And they had this real issue. They kept running quads in the boundary, 4 receiver sets into the boundary, and Winnipeg didn't know how to adjust to it. So they're walking out to the sidelines. All the DBs, I'm on the Winnipeg sideline, all the DBs are just like, no, you got to do this, like pointing at each other, screaming, yelling. The defensive coordinator, Les Brown, walks over. He goes, guys, relax, not time to panic. Jerron Bolden, best line ever. Look at the effing scoreboard. It is time to panic.
That'll do it.
I was telling you, I was howling, and I wish that you knew him or you're related to him, but obviously you're not. But man, to me, that was one of the best stories I ever had. Because he said, "Look at the damn effing." He said, "Look at the effing scoreboard. It is time to panic," because they were down by 17 points at that point. So, anyway, Brandon, it's been so much fun talking to you, man. An interesting journey and continued success. What are you doing these days, by the way?
I'm being a dad.
Awesome.
I set this year. I missed out on this year, and so I'm going to try again next year and see how it goes. If not, I'll be sending my paperwork in for official retirement, but I'm not retired just yet.
Well, tell you what, best of luck in whatever you do, man. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.